In this video, I'm building a Lego farm with all the animals, crops, vehicles, and structures it needs to be the greatest of all time. Our story starts with Gerald, who's always wanted to quit his boring desk job and go live off the land like the pioneer stories he grew up loving. So he said goodbye to his evil boss and sold everything he had, his house, car, even his clothes, to buy a small plot of land in the wilderness of my Lego city called 25ville, starting his new farm from absolute scratch. Okay, maybe this was a bad idea. It's gonna take a lot of work to make everything Gerald needs to survive out here. Starting with clothes. You gotta put some pants on, bro. He made the difficult climb up the mountain to the goat sanctuary on top, wrangling up a few of them using this cool shepherd's crook piece to bring them back to the fenced-in pen I built. We've got a screaming goat, a fainting goat, and a woolly goat, which Gerald carefully sheared so that he could finally make some extremely itchy clothes out of. But they're gonna need something to eat. So Gerald went out and bought some seeds to plant while I started building his new farmhouse using the backsides of these masonry bricks, log profile bricks, and plenty of studs on the side techniques on all four walls to give it a real rustic look. This creaky wooden door opens up to the tiled off floor of the interior, which is a bit on the smaller side. It'll more than make up for that in height later on, but for now the inside is just super cramped. I had to resort to putting the bed in the kitchen. It's getting serious. Gerald actually loves to cook and can't wait to try making some of his family recipes with the food he'll soon be growing. He laid down in his new bed, so glad to finally be free from his old job at the Ville Corporation with not a trace of them in sight. Except the company sent out a massive shipment of supplies so that they could destroy the natural landscape and build a corporate farming facility right next to Gerald's property. It's all managed by this guy, old farmer Wilkerson, who hates animals. And he started to construct this giant red barn to exploit them as much as possible. Attaching tiles to the wall gives it this amazing wood plank texture, just like real barn wood. Unfortunately, I only had enough pieces to do the front side, but this classic style barn door makes up for it. It's on some janky hinges that can just about manage to open and close, kind of. And on the inside, the corporation has all these cells, I mean pens, to put the animals in. Starting with sheep. They have all this fancy machinery to automatically shear, process, and knit the wool into comfy little sweaters, which Gerald desperately needed to replace his itchy outfit. But when he came over to ask for one, Farmer Wilkerson was furious.
This town ain't big enough for the two of us.
He challenged Gerald to a duel of the farms. Whoever wins more blue ribbons at the upcoming country fair would take over the loser's entire farm. If Gerald lost, he would be forced to give up this new life he sold everything for and return to the rat race with nothing. This was no longer just about surviving. It was about thriving. Deal. Alright, if Gerald is gonna have any chance competing with a giant corporation, he's gonna need some help from his old friend Garrett, who sold his booming carrot business to some big company so that his dad Gary could finally retire. Their farm animals needed a new home anyways, so they let him borrow some of them, starting with chickens. I built a small, cozy coop with this weird interlocking roof for them to live in, as Gerald lovingly collects the free-range eggs they lay. Meanwhile, Farmer Wilkerson's barn has this brutal chicken prison, with birds crammed in as tight as they possibly can be, churning out eggs by the thousands, like real-life factory farms.
Wait, factory? Hold on.
We're adding a working egg conveyor belt, and this robot named Eggy, but not because I'm addicted or anything. Vitarush even has its top scientists in this lab trying to invent a new species of chickens that lays golden eggs. Like, how do you top that? With a horse, of course. Gerald got 3 horses and a foal from his niece Rachel, so I built them a stable using the same shingle technique as her old house that was based on Stardew Valley. It's not the most stable thing in the world, but it looks great. And these different stalls have room for each of them to go. In order to beat his neighbor at the fair, Gerald hooked up this harness to a couple of the horses and carefully plowed his little field with it. I bet this thing would hurt to step on. This tilled soil is actually made with a bunch of those same log bricks I used in Gerald's walls on their sides, and he was able to plant all the seeds he bought earlier in it. Okay, apparently Farmer Wilkerson copped the latest tractor that has 50 times more horsepower than Gerald's ride, with all these different attachments to plow his field automatically. Side note, but the set that this came in has a very familiar looking minifigure. You know what, fine, here's her stupid backstory. But anyways, both farms have their crops planted and need a way to water them, like the dad from the Lego movie. Well, well, well. Actually, he only needs one. Gerald, being the outstanding worker that he is, dug a well on his land with his cute little bucket you can lower to water all his fields by hand. The Vita Rush Corporation, however, doesn't have time for all that gross manual labor. Instead, Farmer Wilkerson siphoned water from the oasis so he could power this massive sprinkler irrigation system called a pivot. And now his crops are growing twice as much as Gerald's. But with all this water flowing into the soil, it's making a lot of mud, which pigs like these guys absolutely love to wallow in. I built this pig pen for all of Gerald's new pigs, which even has a slide for them to go down. Wait, what's that? Oh, it's Gloppy, the friendly mud puddle man. Like the video right now, or Gloppy will be sad. Anyways, as much as Gerald loves bacon, he just doesn't have enough pigs to afford losing any. So instead, he just lets them sniff out truffles from the ground. Farmer Wilkerson, on the other hand, definitely doesn't have this problem. He's got plenty of pigs, including these 3 little baby ones that he lifts up with his crane to put them through the Glizatron 5000, a terrifying machine on the top floor of the barn that butchers them into hundreds of hot dogs for a future company event. And this little piggy went, let's put a roof on this thing with one of those stereotypical cupola weather vane kind of things on top in order to cover up all of this. You do not want to see how the sausage is made. Farmer Wilkerson said that when he wins the competition and takes over both farms, he's putting every last one of Gerald's animals through the Glizatron, including Gloppy. We gotta stop this man at all costs. Eventually, both farms' crops have finally grown in. Gerald has a field filled with golden wheat, Garrett's carrots, and some very angry tomato plants, while Farmer Wilkerson is growing corn, pumpkins, purple cabbages, and apple trees. With all this juicy produce, crows are flocking in to eat it. Gerald had to build this basic scarecrow to fend them off, since the best security is looking like you don't need any. And crossbows. But with the birds taken care of and the big fair only a few days away, it's harvest time. I built this scythe for Gerald to gather everything by hand, while Farmer Wilkerson converted his tractor into this giant combine to plow down his entire field in about 2 seconds flat. To store all these crops, he added a tall, skinny silo behind the barn with a ladder to carefully climb up the side and pour everything in. For some reason, I always thought the ladder guard on my grandparents' old silo was a basketball hoop. So I'm making that childhood dream a reality so we can finally name these goats. We've got Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Tom Brady, and Patrick Mahomes. Personally, I don't know anything about sports. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn if I tried. But according to the comments, these guys are the goats. Incredibly rare and expensive goats for some reason. Like, I spent way too much money on these. But even with this all-star team, Gerald doesn't have enough animals, crops, or land to warrant having a silo. He just processes everything he harvests on the second floor of his farmhouse, which I built up at ever so slight an angle using hinged bricks. And I think up here is the perfect place to add a windmill. These pieces are normally used as rigging on LEGO pirate ships, but we can attach them as blades around a central point to catch the wind. Except they have holes in them. How is this supposed to work? How do any of these work? I ended up having to glue paper sails to each one to make it slightly more functional, and using some special gears, we can convert this rotation into this rotation that spins the millstone inside. This extreme force grinds the wheat into flour, which Gerald uses to bake some homemade fresh bread. Oh yeah. You know what would go well with this? A tall glass of milk. Oops. Farmer Wilkerson has different types of cows that like to gaslight the mailman into thinking he's schizophrenic. These ones make milk, and these ones make chocolate milk. You know, obviously. All of them are gonna become hamburgers eventually, but until then, he hooked up this machine to pump them dry, filling up these big tanks with their milk and refusing to share even a single drop with their calves. But because that's not utterly evil enough, he added these TVs inside all the animal cells, playing 24/7 fast food commercials to really drive the message home on the range. Gerald is content with just milking his goats by hand, making his great-grandma's famous goat cheese bruschetta recipe with what he collects. But now both farms have all their produce, livestock, and baked goods ready to show at the fair. So let's speedrun building the fairground so the judging can begin. Here's the ticket booth, where Gerald and Farmer Wilkerson brought everything through to display. We've got some overpriced food trucks selling pizza and ice cream, and a bunch of classic carnival games, like this one where you shoot slingshots at balloons to win a stuffed animal that Farmer Wilkerson plans to do unspeakable things to, a duck pond, and a dunk tank. Anyone watching the video right now can actually play this hammer strength test game yourself by pausing the video at just the right time. Ready? Go! Now comment below what score you got and see if you can beat my first attempt. There's also some fantastic photo ops, an axe throwing booth, log rolling pool, chainsaw art, an inflatable bouncy house for kids and adults to enjoy, and a Ferris wheel to top it all off. But now it's finally time for the main event in the center. This might have been a mistake, but I let my subscribers be the judges of both farmer showings in the 3 different categories. Make sure to subscribe if you're not, so you can participate in future stuff like this. The polls were up for 24 hours, and the choices you guys made during that time will determine the fate of Gerald's livelihood forever. First up, produce. Gerald brought some of his freshest, tastiest vegetables, but apparently you guys like Farmer Wilkerson's crops better. I see how it is. If he wins just one more category, it's over. But next they showed their livestock, with Gerald bringing in his prized spotted goat, Michael. And Vitarush's scientists pumped this poor pig so full of hormones that he just looks kind of depressed. I can kind of see why you guys gave that one to Gerald, making it a tie. It all comes down to the final blue ribbon. Which baked good will win it all? Well, after all the back-breaking labor Gerald endured, growing his crops, harvesting, milling, and cooking, the ribbon goes to Farmer Wilkerson. What have you done? He snatched up his new goat and raced back to the farm to slaughter him along with the rest of them.
Gerald, you have any words about your horribly embarrassing defeat?
I'm so sorry to all my animals. I failed you. You were like a family to me. Each of you deserving all the love and respect in the world. I know what it's like being trapped in a box. And I tried my absolute hardest so that you wouldn't have to be. If only I had another chance.
All the barn animals were so moved by Gerald's words that they coordinated an escape and destroyed Vitarush's stain upon the land. For now, Michael was saved, Wilkerson was given a new job, and Gerald got to live out the farm life he had always dreamed of, feeding all of 25ville with the Lego food he grew. But if you want to see me turn actual food into Lego, watch this video here.